welcome everyone to Color Commentary. We are your pauper commentators, Michael Petchik and Adrian Gonzalez. How's it going, Adrian?
Colorfully, Mike. It's going colorfully.
Colorfully? All right. And this is the segment of the show where we'd usually, get into people who help bring the show to you, and specifically talking about original Magic art. But instead, this week we've got Josh Krause, the guy behind original Magic art, here to talk with us on the show. So he can fill you in. How's it going, Josh?
It's going great.
All right. So we've obviously, for a while now been advertising your products, and I do really, really appreciate them, and I kind of leapt at the chance to have you on the show. So I guess to start things off, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, hobbies outside of Magic, favorite pieces of media, that sort of stuff.
Sure. My name's Josh. Hi, everybody. Longtime listener. Enjoy your show. And I'm really glad to be working with you, and I'm glad that you represent our products. And I'm always, always get that little giddy little feeling when you do your fun little intros for the show. It's great. So I run Original Magic Art, and that's what I do, as my full-time gig for now. And outside of that, I watch way too much TV. I spend way too much time on Reddit, and generally like that. Listen to a lot of podcasts, get into politics, and spend a lot of time doing things that I shouldn't.
But most of us within the community, of course, know you for the classic Magic art tokens, which you have had 2 Kickstarters for, and you're now doing a Patreon, I believe, that has a tier where you get nice new tokens, which release with every set, if I'm correct.
Yeah, we had last February we launched our first Kickstarter that went very, very well. Then later that year, we launched a second one for even more tokens. And then starting in, I think I actually started the Patreon in December of last year, but we've been going strong ever since. And that's how we release all the new tokens. And whereas some Patreons out there that release tokens release 1 or 2 tokens a month, we usually right now we're set for 3, but anytime a new set comes out, which has been apparently every month the last few months, we bump that up to 5 so that everybody can get all the new tokens, and we can, because my aim for the classic art tokens, the idea started as I wanted to give something out for another project that I had been working on, something that I'm actually getting back to now. I wanted to be able to give out tokens as kind of a thank you for supporting the work that I was going to be doing, and started looking into actually commissioning art. Found that took a long time and was very expensive, so I started looking into copyright-free art. I can remember doing my first initial Google searches for copyright-free art and stumbling on the National Gallery in Washington had the Woman with the Parasol by Claude Monet, and I was like, well, that's my spirit token. And then I kind of went buck wild from there. Just built a project out of it. Now we're making everything new. Like I just sent out a survey to all of my patrons for them to pick out what 5, because there are 7 new tokens encounters for Ixalan. So we're going to be making a 0/2 plant and a 1/1 merfolk with hexproof and all that other stuff. So they get to vote on which ones we start off with. We'll make 5, and then next month we'll make the ones that we don't make this month. So. And we recently switched over kind of our premium option. We were doing Patreon only, like you can only get them through the Patreon double-sided tokens, which would be like a monk and a soldier, or a knight ally and a dragon, that sort of things. And a lot of times those like the single piece of art that we break out into 2 different tokens. But now we're moving towards, and we're trying out we're trying out metal tokens. So it's going to be Patreon exclusive metal tokens, and they take a while to get made, but they look great. And we did the first run last month, and I'm just about to send out to my patrons the new ones that we're going to be making this month, which should be a fun piece. I picked out a good piece of art, and we're going to make a good token out of it.
Yeah, I've got to admit, with the recent release schedule, you must have your hands quite full, because I'm having a hard time keeping track of the set releases as a consumer who doesn't have to do anything besides sit here for an hour or so every week and talk into a microphone about the cards. I can't that. It seems like this must be a big old crunch time for you.
You said metal tokens. Would you do classic metal art tokens?
Yes, these are literally classic metal art tokens. Yes. I would say, it's funny you mentioned metal. Like, one of the pieces that I found that I included in my first project was like the most metal piece of art I've ever seen. It's by Vincent van Gogh, of a skeleton smoking a burning cigarette. I was like, how is that not? How has someone not used that for their metal, like a cover band for an album cover? It's a great piece of art, and it's just like black background, the smoking skull. It's awesome.
The one out of the first wave that I really loved, but sadly realized I have like no use for, is the what is it, the Goya Saturn devouring his child, which I think, if I remember correctly, is black mana. You
don't track your black mana? Never?
No, I am like an avowed non-combo player, because combos are just like, it just doesn't click in my head. I'm just miserable at playing combo decks. But I think that's what attracts me as someone who went to art school for 5 years to the project, was just the fact these are pieces that I was already familiar with, and in some cases not familiar with, and it was really cool to see them lined up to tokens, especially for the handful of tokens that Wizards has never printed, which remain a huge frustration for me.
Yeah, same here. I've been playing since 4th edition, so I run into a lot of situations where there's no token that exists, and so I want to make all those tokens. Like, I want to make a kelp token. I know that beyond the Patreon, I'll probably sell like 5 of them after I make my initial print run. But I'm still going to make them because they need to be made. Kelp needs to exist. Starfish needs to exist. All of these things that don't have official tokens and maybe shouldn't, I'm still going to make them because I want to.
What on earth produces a starfish token? I can sadly tell you what produces a kelp token, but
Spiny Starfish makes starfish tokens whenever it takes damage, I think. Or is it whenever it regenerates? It's one of the two.
Is this Fallen Emperors or the Dark? Because it's got to be one of those two.
I believe it's Fallen Empires, but
yeah,
that's what the kelp one's from too.
Yeah,
kelp I think is from Homelands.
Oh, I want to say
Wall of Kelp is definitely from one of those not super great early sets. So, I mean, we've talked a little bit on before the show, and so how we obviously know how you're connected to Magic via original Magic art, but what is sort of your usual level of play? Are you like more on the casual end of things? Are you ever going to like big tournaments, that sort of thing?
I used to I played back in the day. I was really great at Ravnica Limited, loved Ravnica Limited, and so top 8'd a few PTQs, but never got any further than that. So nowadays I play mainly just F&M Limited. I was living in Central Oregon for a while, and the store that I frequented had a good Pauper metagame, and so there were some dedicated Pauper players there. So that's how I got introduced and kind of hooked by the format. But nowadays it's limited, and then a format that I guess I kind of helped create called Vintage Artist Constructed.
Yeah, that's I'm tangentially aware of it. I have no idea what the metagame is like, but I like it from a conceptual standpoint.
What are the restrictions of it? I've never heard of it actually. So
Oh, okay. I'll spread the gospel of
Yeah,
Vintage
spread
Artists
it.
Constructed. Okay, so Vintage Artists Constructed is just vintage. That follows the vintage restricted list, banned list, that sort of thing. But it has one additional restriction that all of the cards in your deck can only have a single artist, including basic lands.
So I hear this, and I'm trying to think through what artists have actually done every color of basic.
Sure. And not necessarily every color. You also have some artists that have only done a couple, but they're still, very viable. But once you start getting into the format, because if you're a brewer, you just anytime I describe the format to a person that loves brewing, their mind just lights up because there's so many different possibilities, and the metagame's pretty. I mean, people are still. As new basic lands are being printed, like the Rebecca Gay deck, when they created that deck, the Commander deck, and included those lands, it opened up a whole new deck for Rebecca Gay that didn't exist prior to that. And when they gave Kev Walker a Plains, his deck his deck was already good because he has such a wide variety of cards to choose from. But when you have access to Infinity, Wrath of Gods, in a format that's mostly creatures, you're going to do okay.
Now, I have seen things from GPs and stuff where there have been Vintage Artists Constructed side events, and I definitely remember seeing something about someone getting either a game loss or a warning because they didn't have their basics matching, which I think is kind of hilarious. But could you give us an idea of what decks look like in this format?
Sure. So it's all based around the artists and what cards the artists have done. So the metagame is generally defined by like you'll say some of the top contenders are like Greg Staples has a really good red-white deck that has Solemn Simulacrum, Baneslayer Angel, Blade Splicer, Martial Coup. So it's kind of like a red-white big mana control. Then you have Therese Nielsen has a good ramp deck because it has Birds of Paradise, Lotus Cobra, Loxodon Warhammer, Garruk Wildspeaker, Eternal Witness, Swords of Plowshares, and then it ramps into a Chroma. Then you have other decks like Kev Walker. I just played against a Kev Walker deck that was really strong. It had it was black-white, and it had Wrath. I think it had Damnation as well. Kitchen Finks, and you just have so many options with him. I have a mono black Kev Walker deck that has Pack Rat and Damnation and Geralf's Messenger and a bunch of different Slaughter Pact, Vasara. Then you have Christopher Muller. You can make various combinations of him because he has all 5 basics, and he has almost always Jitte. If you go red, you have Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, Siege Gang Commander. If you go white, you have Osamaru, and several other cards I can't think of right now. If you go blue, you have Spellstarter Sprite, Sower of Temptation, access to Meddling Mage. If you go green, you have Witch Stalker and Uvenwald Tracker. So there's a wide, and that's just like the often played. You have Wayne Reynolds has a really good black-red deck. I play a Zoltan Boros deck that's mono red. That's really good. And the Rebecca Gay deck is a lot of fun because it's a Enchanted Evening combo deck. You play Enchanted Evening, and then the next turn you play Calming Verse, and tapping all your lands.
Ooh.
And so their side of the board is gone, and your side of the board is not, and you can kill them with Bitter Blossom or whatever you want to kill them with. So it's a lot of fun. If you've never tried the format, put a few decks together. It's vintage, so if you were crazy and you wanted to make a Mark Tadine deck that's mono blue and run 4 mana drains, you can. It's going to be kind of slow, and you're not gonna win against some of the other decks, but you have fun. I know of so Chippy, an artist, has the He did an Isochron Scepter and Orm's Chant, so you can do Scepter Chant lock in Izzy. But he doesn't have like his main kill conditions outside of those like Skithrix, so it's not he has that, but he doesn't have too much support around it. So he was playing against a Dan Fraser deck, and Dan Fraser has access to all 5 Moxen plus Mox Diamond, but his main kill condition is Juggernaut. But Dan Fraser was able to get out of the Scepter Chant lock because he had Zenthic Poltergeist. That turned, in response to being chanted, he turned the Isochron Scepter into a creature and then cast Vendetta targeting it. And so he was able to get out of it with, it allows you to play cards that you never would ever play. And you start seeing the game, like whenever a new set comes out, you start caring about things in a way that you never cared about before, which is just fun. It's a fun way to experience the game in a way you've never experienced it before.
It sounds like a blast. I always love like these niche formats and seeing like that brief glance into like how the metagame has sort of shaken out.
So speaking of niche formats, what is your favorite Pauper deck?
Elves. Elves all the way. Now, I'll preface that's mainly because I own the original paintings for Quirion Ranger, Nettle Sentinel, and Heritage Druid. Now, I know you can't play Heritage Druid, but those 2 cards definitely can play in Pauper, and so I'm a big fan. Little biased.
So in a way, you are still playing. You're playing like artist Pauper, not a specific artist, but like art that I own the original copies of Pauper.
Yeah, Art League. We among the art collecting community, we did roll that. The few of us that had enough pieces to do it, we did play that format. It got a little boring, and we just but I decided to take that and throw it into Pauper.
So would it be safe to say? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, you first, Mike.
Well, I was going to say, are you a fan of elves in other formats as well, or is this a Pauper exclusive for you?
I played Legacy Elves for a while. Vintage, I like my power too much, so I play blue spells. I'm a blue mage at heart. I love blue. Blue hooked me, but I like the little green men. They're great.
All right. So one of the things that we always ask people when they come on here, and it's always like a hotly divisive topic. What are your preferred basic lands? And everyone either has zero opinion or very strong opinion that we've ever asked this.
Unglued basics. Easy choice.
Okay. I can respect that. I'm not a big fan of the unhinged ones, but unglued at least have the funky border.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of the new unlands that are about to come out?
I like everything about them except for the tops. That colored border at the top, I really dislike. I wish they had either just had the names of the card like punched out, like just have it white text in there, or done it a very different. Like I don't like the colored aspect to it. I think you can see through it. I just don't like it. It doesn't look like the bottom looks clean. The art is awesome, but then the top is just, I don't know. It doesn't match the rest of the card, and I just don't like it.
Yeah, I was definitely I've ranted about this at length on the show, and I've never been really a big fan of the full art lands that we've gotten so far. But these are a step in the right direction. I've got to agree. I work at a design firm, and one of my coworkers plays Magic as well. So the moment they hit the internet, I get like a little notification, and he's like, "All right, what do you think of these?" And I was like, "Top border, not a fan." And he was like, "I know." So I'm glad that there's a consensus on that, but I do like the art.
Yeah,
I think they look. They don't quite look like a Magic card, but I'm kind of okay with that.
Yeah, John always does a great job, and actually he did these traditionally. He has been working digitally for many years now, but he with the ancestral vision and these lands, he did paintings for each of them, which means that he's going to be able to buy a very nice car. I think someone has already offered $20,000 for all 5 of the lands, and that seems low.
Wow.
So I think he'll do just fine.
Oh, I'm sure, especially given how these are going to eventually become iconic art for a lot of players.
Yep.
So I kind of want to delve more into the art side of things, and I guess one of my first questions is, do you have like a formal art background, or is this something that sort of, you talked about how you had this idea for the tokens to go along with a project, and did it kind of grow out of that, or do you have like some level of art training?
I do not. I mean, I knew the basics. Like I knew who Van Gogh was. I knew who Monet was. I knew the general big hitters out there. But I was by far not an art history major. And it was funny is I went to school and graduated as an engineer. But one of my friends from home went to the same school as me, and he graduated or was studying as an art history major. And I was like, art history, whatever. And so, and now he's a lawyer, and I look at art history.
I guess I'd always kind of assumed, just with the breadth of art that's involved in your project, that there must be some art background. But I guess it's kind of interesting that this is something that you sort of came to later in life.
Yeah, I mean, I'd been a fan of magic art for, since I saw it, and got, more and more involved with it. Started collecting in 2006, started my site, and, kind of helping build the art collecting community in 2012. So I've definitely been, focused and interested in art. But as far as classic art, it started with that one piece, and then I taught myself a lot along the way, learned about artists that I never knew existed, learned about movements that I never really knew existed. I'd never heard of pointillism before. I mean, I guess I'd seen it in the past, but I didn't know like what was involved in that, how each little dot adds up to a different piece. And it was really interesting. The project uses all public domain imaging, so there are some artists that I can't include that I'd love to. Like, I love Escher. Picasso is amazing. Dali would be great, but all of those, the copyrights still exist, and they don't expire for, between 10 and 30 years. So it'll be a while before you see anything with them. But still, there's one artist I'd never heard of, Giuseppe Arcimboldo, was making people out of fruit, like using illusions effectively. And he was doing that in the 16th century. It was nuts. I had no idea that that sort of stuff existed. And so I tried to make sure that I was able to pull from as many genres and as many different styles and cultures as I could. And there's some cultures that I just don't know enough about to, effectively include. Like there's a lot of Indian or even Persian art that I don't know enough about the different characters that they've made artwork for. Like I was going to include one piece in my first project, and then before I, went to print, found out that I was not making a good match. It was going to be a not good match. So I made some changes, and so I still educating myself and trying to find out new things and make new ones. Like I just found, I just made the Tutu illusion for that can be used for Jace. The new Jace, and it's actually an optical illusion from the late 19th century. So it's fun to include those little things. And one of the things that I like to include in the project when I can, it's just fun little things that don't actually exist in Magic. Like I made a Vampire Hunter token because I had this amazing portrait of Abraham Lincoln, and I was like, well, obviously this is going to happen. And made a rock, paper, scissors token, and lots of fun ways to enjoy the game that just have a little fun, because I love Magic. I've been playing it for more than 20 years. It's what I think about all the time. So if I can make the game a little bit more fun for other people, then all the better.
That's awesome. What sort of Magic art like really speaks to you? Like do you think, this is a card I want to play based on art? Obviously the elf stuff, but like there's just so many questions I want to ask you, and that's like the best one I can think of like right now. But yeah, so tell us, like, first I want to know that, but I also want to know how you figure out which art you want to put on the cards. So I guess take the first one first, and then we'll come back to that second one.
Sure. I'd say I'm a player, so I'm not, other than Artist Constructed, I'll go with the powerful cards, but I like painterly styles. I like artists that are able to deliver a specific and recognizable style. But they all have their great points. I mean, Therese is amazing, and you can see, now that I know a lot more about classic art, I can see a lot of different artists in her work. Like, she is really inspired by Alphonse Mucha and Gustav Klimt, and you can see it all over the place in her work. You have Steve Prescott he's definitely recognizable, and he always has a bit of there's a little bit of cartoony in there. But always a great sense of humor. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but he did that one playmat years and years ago of like a two-headed chicken breathing lightning against cauliflower wielding an axe. I think
I have seen that one.
It's a lot of fun. And Niels Ham, he works primarily digitally, but you wouldn't be able to, I mean, you can tell, but you can also see that it's not like, you see a lot of digital artists and they follow, it's almost like a cookie cutter. The ones that put the time in, you can differentiate it, but the digital platform, you'll see a lot of the same sort of effects and the same sort of styles. But Nils is able to, make the best out of it and still keep his style individually. I mean, I'm a player in that I'll play the best cards, but if I had to choose the art, I'd probably I'd go for a specific artist that I can recognize, or just a piece of art that I really enjoy. And then how do I pick out the art for the cards? Well, I have a folder with a couple hundred images that I've sourced and just kind of ready and waiting for tokens. So that's what I usually go through. And all that is just me having gone through all the different, sites that are out there, like Wikimedia Commons, Dover Pictura when it existed, all the different museums that have released their images to the public domain, and just kind of, hey, that image looks cool, and I bet I could make a token. I found a pirate token from a book printed in the early 20th century, like 1911 or something, that I had just kind of waiting around in case, hey, maybe they'll make a pirate token in the future. It could happen. And so that's how I generally pick it. I just go for make sure that the art matches. And in cases where it doesn't exactly match, make sure it's a fun one. Like I searched and searched for like a dinosaur, like a T-Rex or something like that. But like classically, the classical dinosaurs that we know of today didn't really exist until like the early to mid 20th century. So a lot of that artwork isn't in the public domain. So I took it in a different direction, and it's this Japanese portrait of a crane looking at the viewers. We're just saying that birds are dinosaurs and going with that. And so we just have a little fun where we can.
Now, you keep bringing up the whole public domain thing, and obviously, that makes it much easier on you and not having to source the rights to this art, which can, sometimes be super expensive. And you'd mentioned Dali and a couple others. Are there any artists who you're just kind of like counting down the years, waiting for the chance to use their art?
I don't know my artists that well, so no. But there are a few that I've run into that are just like a couple years away. That like a lot of the children's authors from the early 20th century, children's book authors or illustrators. A few of them are just within a few years of entering the public domain, and I could go into the legal ramifications. Like when I first got into this, I didn't really know anything. I heard, hey, this piece is in the public domain. That means I can do whatever I want with it. It's a little bit more complicated than that. So you have to make sure that you're properly sourcing it, and then you have some weird copyright laws in the different countries and within the U.S. itself. It gets complicated. But yeah, there are definitely some artists that I know that I'll find and they'll just be like, oh, come on, just a couple years. But yeah, I mean, hey, maybe, hopefully, Magic just keeps on going and people keep on buying my stuff, and I can keep on making new tokens, and eventually we'll get to Escher. I think he's next up on the block, and it's only like 10 years away.
Yeah, he's definitely got some interesting work that could very easily fit into Illusion or something like that.
Oh, I could make a whole set of tokens just off of his art. Easy.
So when these spoiler seasons hit, like, is there just that level of anticipation for you of like, well, I now I've got to prep myself for whatever weird thing they're coming out with, or is it just strictly business, and you get excited the same way the rest of us do about these spoilers?
Oh, I definitely get excited with when the new spoilers come out. Each set is a new challenge. Cat dragons don't exist in classic art. Sorry, kids. So we get as close as we can. In this case, I found a children's book that had a dragon that had cattish looks, and it also was really colorful and well done. So my cat dragon is this giant purple flying dragon thing that looks like a cat dragon-ish. We'll say it's a cat dragon. It's our cat dragon. So there's a little bit of that involved. But yeah, every spoiler season, I have a lot of things that I look at, because in addition to the classic art tokens, I'm also working on through the original Magic Art store to work with artists to sell playmats and prints and things like that. So I'm also looking at, hey, what artists came out with this piece? Can I start working with them? Like I just started working with Jason Rainville to make prints, and we're going to make playmats like his Cryptic Command. The response, everyone really loved that piece. It's probably the best piece of art in Iconic Masters, so we're going to make a playmat of that. And so just reaching out to artists, and then I consider what's in Vintage Artist Constructed. So yeah, spoiler season has a lot of different ramifications, and I pay attention to it a lot. When on Friday, when the full spoiler drops for Ixalan, it'll be a lot of fun to just go through and see what all, because I also do articles for my site. I look at the reprints. We do comparisons between we do the reprint Rumble series, where the different is the new hotness going to beat out the classic genius, and just figuring out like which of the new artworks is preferred. And it was funny. I've had booths at different events, and I've heard from people that work at Wizards that even some of the people on the creative team will read the results of the reprint Rumbles as kind of like a feedback on how people are enjoying the new style versus the old style for the different images.
That is super cool. I'm kind of curious. Are you one of those folks who kind of prefers the quote unquote good old days of Magic art, or are you more into our new the new kind of more unified look that Magic has?
I think that on a case by case basis, there's probably more amazing art coming out nowadays than there was in the past, because in the past there were some not as well executed pieces, not as well envisioned pieces. But I mean, everything that you look at, when you played back 20 years ago, you're looking through nostalgia glasses, and all the artwork in the like alpha and up was simple, but it was designed to be simple. It's not like saying it was simple isn't a denigrating in any way. It's iconic. It's that's why whenever you look at a logo for a business, it's simple. When you break it down, it's not tons of lots and little details. It's just instantly recognizable and not much clutter. And the game has transitioned from that very iconic, rather, I don't want to say unsophisticated, but in some ways unsophisticated way to nowadays, there's everything on the screen. You have ultra detail everywhere, photorealistic quality in a lot of the different pieces, and you have a different level of detail in the work you see nowadays. And some people are turned off by that, and sometimes I am. On a piece by piece basis, but nowadays you just have a different caliber of artists working the game, and you even have some artists that worked in the game that are coming back, like Mark Poole. He did Counterspell, but he's also doing artwork now in the sets now. And if you look at his work back then versus what he's making nowadays, yeah, it's leagues above what he was doing, and he recognizes he'll say the same thing. That's because he's put the time into it, and he's kept up with, I guess, what the industry is expecting of you, and he goes from there. So I think that. Do I love the Fogelos? Yeah. Do I love Mark Tadine? Yeah. Do I wish he was still working with Magic? Absolutely. Do I love Quentin Hoover? All day long. But I mean, you saw when those artists tried to get, like Quentin Hoover, when he had his style, and I loved it, and then he kind of like molded his style to Wizard, to what the current Wizard's vision was in the Time Spiral block, and you saw just a different. It was a change that it didn't look like Quentin Hoover, and it didn't really work out as well. And you see some artists are able to, I guess, adapt to the changing things, and other ones just do their own thing. So I think that, what can I say? I love it all. Could I say that some isn't the best? Yeah, probably. But I mean, better than I could do.
Other than art, is there anything else about the game that you feel nostalgic about?
Oh, man, I mean, I remember the tournaments that I was in, and I enjoyed playing in those. And I'm not really going to have time to do the PTQ circuit and all that deck building. I used to build EDH decks just for fun, and nowadays I struggle to find the time to put one together. And so yeah, there are a lot of memories attached to the game, and I really enjoyed it. I met a lot of great people, and the game has created a lot of unique experiences that I would never have experienced otherwise, and that's why I keep on doing what I do.
So piggybacking off of having this as a hobby at one point in your life, and kind of turning it into, as you said, your full-time job. Has that kind of changed your relationship with Magic?
I certainly don't play as much as I used to. But yeah, definitely. In some ways, it's made me care about it more, care about its success and its livelihood. Like, you never saw me arguing that people that make unofficial playmats through inked gaming is bad and hurting artists, because I didn't really consider it. But now that I work with artists to make official playmats, yeah, I'm that guy, and I'm like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't be doing that, because we're trying to do it the right way, not take things out of the hands of the artists that make the game. So yeah, I mean, I've gotten more into the community in a way that I never thought I would. Met a lot of people and created some cool stuff, but the game itself it's doing well. I like, for example, Arena, Magic Arena just came out on HasCon, and it looked good enough that it finally motivated me to say, you know what, I've put tons of money into Magic Online. I don't play it anymore. And so this looks like it's good enough that I'll be able to play this and throw some small amount of money at it and probably have some fun with it, draft, do whatever, and I won't have to worry about Magic Online. So I actually sold out of Magic Online. So the game is growing, and I think they're making some interesting changes, and I'm happy to see it.
I'm not quite ready to sell out of Magic Online, but I do definitely understand the sentiment.
I think if they keep it on, I think Arena could grow. It looked like it had enough promise. It didn't have Duels of the Planeswalkers, and Duels had a specific way to approach the game, and Arena looked like they were approaching it as if it was the actual game. Like, it didn't have that weird countdown clock, and it had the ability to go through all the different steps, and it didn't have a lot of the dumbed down nature that I saw in Duels, and which is good, and all the flashy effects and things like that looked like fun, but the core of it looked like they actually got it right. And I think that in a perfect world, I would just sit on my cards and they would port everything over, and once they've introduced all those sets. But who knows if that'll happen? And even if they do a port over, are you going to keep your collections? You should, but I don't know. So I just decided, because I wasn't really using it anyway. It wasn't really like a fear thing, but it was mostly like maybe I just go with this because I wasn't really using it, and I could use that money to buy more art or build some more vintage artist constructed decks.
So how much original Magic art do you actually own? And I have no frame of reference, not owning a whole lot of actual. I don't own any actual Magic art. I have a couple prints, but that's it. Like, how many different pieces do you have at this point?
I have around 50 paintings and 300 or so sketches and color studies and preliminary drawings, things like that. Some artists work digitally but make a pencil sketch. Some artists work pencil sketch, color study, painting. Some artists do a mixture of the two. Some just do a painting. And so I started collecting and bought paintings. Then paintings got expensive, and I was like, hey, sketches are still cheap. So I bought a bunch of those, and now I buy less because everything's more expensive.
Another thing I wanted to bring up, you have a new project in the works, and we've seen sort of preliminary images of it, but I was hoping that maybe you would be able to talk a little bit about I believe it's called Relics of Wizardry.
Yes, Relics of Wizardry is a new project for a kind of a new. It doesn't really exist on the market. It's custom counters, or when I posted on Reddit, people desperately told me not to call them counters and instead status markers. But they are custom coins that can be used as counters or status markers for Magic and other card games. The first one that I debuted was Exerted. So it's on one side, it has the word Exerted on it, and the other side is actually the translated hieroglyphs for the word exerted in ancient Egyptian. We worked with Sonia Greer, Magic's resident Egyptologist, to do the actual translations, and it's like a cartouche. It's about 1.5 inches long. They weigh about 0.3 ounces, which is somewhere in between a D6 and a D20, if you want to know how much it weighs. So it's going to a little heft to it, but it's not like hugely heavy. They're solid metal, and we're going to be launching a Kickstarter on October 10th. We're starting with 4 different designs: Exerted, Embalmed, Eternal, +1/+1, -1/-1. That last one's a double-sided. And we'll be sharing more information as we get closer to the launch. And we also have we'll have a goal for the project, and if we exceed that goal, then we'll have options for stretch goals. We have a brick designed. We're working on a treasure and poison and the monarch and monstrous and all different sorts of tokens. Some will be themed with like a Mesoamerican to coincide with Ixalan. Some will be themed with different approaches, and it's not something. It's something I've seen that should exist. I don't know if people, without like seeing them and playing with them, will like. They won't, but I think once people actually see it, when they actually get to see how they look and maybe get to play with them, they're really, really going to like them, because it's like people play with dice, people play with their coins, and to have these special little custom counters and status markers to accessorize their game, I think it'll be really great, because you have all these dice boxes that are all included with all the deck boxes, so there's room for it, and I just think it's a really cool idea, and I hope everyone thinks so. The reception so far has been great. I just reached out to a bunch of content creators to get promo copies out, and I think it'll be a really cool project. October 10th, Kickstarter, Relics of Wizardry.
I was already super excited, but I heard a Monarch token, and I absolutely adore Queen Marchesa for EDH, so I am probably going to be chipping in money on this.
Yeah, and I need one for Boros.
Oh, true, yeah, but it's in Pauper now as well.
Yeah, doing it. Excited.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
But we have sorry. That one's coming in October, and then we have one in January that I'll share with you guys, since you guys are aware of our classic art tokens. So in January, probably we're targeting January 30th for our launch date. We're going to do a collection of foil classic art tokens. And it's just going to be the whole purpose of the project is just going to be to do a print run of foil classic art tokens. It's going to be it's mainly going to be existing ones. We might include a few new ones in there just to make it interesting for people that backed the project before. But we've already I've shown them off to people that backed the project already, and they look great. Really happy with our printer. And so those are coming in January as well. So we're just trying to get all your money and and trade it for really cool things.
I'm always a fan of that sort of interaction, giving someone my hard-earned dollars so that I can have like very specific things that appeal to me and maybe only me. I guess most of the Magic I play these days is EDH, so I'm playing with a bunch of fellow art nerds, so obviously your products go over fairly well, but yeah, no. It's always a little bit of a blast, because when I take them to F&M, you're not exactly getting the same reaction out of everyone. Most people just see it and go, "Oh, it's a neat little token," but the art nerds definitely get a little bit more of a pop there.
Great.
Okay, so I guess is there anything else you kind of want to address on the show? Because it has been a blast having you on here. I'm really glad that we got to talk about art. I guess my only other question would be, do you have like an absolute all-time favorite artist for Magic? Or is it just is this like asking you to pick your favorite?
No. If I had to choose one, I'd go probably with Therese Nielsen. She has kept her style throughout the game. I mean, from Force of Will to nowadays, you can recognize a Therese Nielsen piece, but at the same time, she's been able to adapt to the changing, flavors required by the art directors, while still keeping the essence of her work in there. And I think that she does amazing work. I just recently saw the sleeves with her Urza's head, and so she's probably my favorite artist. And then behind that, Quentin Hoover. I don't know, I love Alphonse Mucha, and both of those are inspired heavily by Alphonse Mucha. So what can I say?
All right, Adrian, do you have anything else, or are you ready to take us on out of this show?
I think we're good. Thank you, right. Josh. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to thank Josh for coming on the show and being such a good sport with all these poking and prodding questions.
Of course. Oh, one more thing. And since you guys haven't done the spot, I'll do the spot. Everybody that's listening, Color Commentary is teamed up with the Original Magic Art Store. You can go to the Original Magic Art Store and use the coupon code Commentary, spelled like the name of the store, and you can use it for any of the playmats, tokens, and prints. Now we're releasing new playmats. We just released Gaia's Cradle by Mark Zug. That's available for pre-order. Una, Queen of the Fae. We just released that one, and we also just started doing prints, and you can use that same discount and save, and at the same time benefit the show and keep them going. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows that the show is awesome, and I hope you guys enjoy our stuff because I really enjoy your stuff.
Oh yeah, and again, thanks for coming on. It's been an absolute blast.
And thanks to everyone else for listening. This podcast is brought to you by the support of our patrons. Please consider supporting us if you like the show. You can check below this video or the description of this podcast for details on where to find us, as well as original magic art. We'd like to remind you, if you're listening to this on a platform with reviews, they're always appreciated because they boost our visibility. If you've got a deck list or idea for a topic, or just want to drop us a line, feel free to contact us either via our website or by emailing us directly at colorcommentary@gmail.com. Special thanks to Pat's Games, L, and to Josh. Till next week, this is Adrian and Mike, and we are signing off for Color Commentary.